Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm reviewing Mechanical Beasts from Sideroom Games. Mechanical Beasts is a 1-4 player game of trying to, well, the theme of the game is you have this mechanical beast that's helping and awesome and amazing until it finally starts self-destructing. This giant behemoth starts falling apart, messing around with things, and your job is to go inside and, well, rescue everyone and try to shut the thing down so it stops doing all the bad things it's doing. That's the theme. The actual gameplay itself is just a tile-laying game, which you are going to be playing as these various engineers, wandering around the board as you slowly create the board, and then trying to rescue everyone and wander out. It's a tile-laying game, and to that end, let's go ahead and just show you how a few rounds will play. So basically, on your turn, what you're going to do is you're going to grab an engineer and you're going to move to one of the areas. You can stay where the area you're in. In fact, right now, we're going to move 0 because there's nothing on the board. From there's a few options you can take. You can either explore, or you can move a gear in the game. Right now, there is no gear, so we're going to explore. We're going to line up, picking a side. So I'm picking this side. We're going to take a tile out, and you're going to line it up with the arrow, and then move into the room. Now, there is a gear here, but we're going to do a few more turns before we actually show you how the game plays. Right now, we're going to take the yellow person's turn. We're going to go ahead and, you know what, we could move them straight in this door in order to go over there. In fact, maybe we should do so. Let's go ahead and do so. So we're going to wander to this room, moving 1, and we're going to line up with this door and flip over another tile, and we got a little bit of a dead end room, but we can still wander in that. Now this person over here, they're going to choose not to use the gear, even though there is a gear. We are going to wander into this room, so let's wander that way, and let's go ahead and line up the arrow, and boom, there we are. We're starting to make progress, and another large gear over there. Now this is where we're going to start messing around with things for the first time. We still haven't found any people yet, but let's show you how the game plays out. So now we're going to go ahead and use this gear, and every gear is different. There's actually 3 of the 4 gear types are actually already over here, but this gear, we're going to use this to be able to move this tile along its pathway. This gear can move up or down, basically lining up with that little piston or the way it looks, moving around, reconfiguring the board. We chose not to move, we chose just to use the gear to move over here. That's something you can do. Honestly, there's no reason to do that just yet, but hey, I want to show you how the game works. From there, we'll go ahead and take the pink person, we'll go explore this way, and we'll put this out. We have another little piston gear over there. Then we're going to go ahead and enter the room. We're going to use the yellow person to move over here. We're going to use this gear to rotate. Now this gear acts as a central room. So when this gear rotates this way, the other gears, all the rooms touching it are going to rotate the other way. So it's going to rotate counter to the way that gear moved. We're going to move back to the yellow person who's going to now head down here now that we've rotated that. In fact, we're actually not going to move there. We're going to use the android. You may be wondering what the android is doing there. The android can be used by any player, which is particularly helpful when you get stuck. You have this kind of central player you can utilize. The android is going to go ahead and move over here, and then we're going to go ahead and explore this room over here. You can move and explore with different people. We're going to explore, putting this down here. In fact, there's a few things you haven't even seen yet that should have seen, but we haven't yet. This person's going to line up over here, exploring that away. And now we have the first thing of two new things. First of all, is we have a small person in this room, which we're going to have to rescue later. Additionally, this door closed behind us. One thing that's fairly common in this game, happened to us not happen much here, but one thing that's fairly common in this game is doors shutting behind you. And this door, the little AI within the giant robot, slams shut behind you as you walk in, and you can't wander back that way. Not necessarily a problem. We're going to wander this way, we're going to explore over here, and boom, we have another door slamming shut, as well as another person that's going to be on that tile over there. We're going to wander over there, back to this person. This person's going to go ahead and wander down. Let's see what we find over there. And we have another door that slams shut, but we are next to our buddy over here, who's going to go ahead and pop over here, and then use this piston to move up, shifting the tiles over there. You're going to go back and forth exploring these rooms until eventually you find this tile over here, which represents the control room, which will immediately start the process of the robot falling apart. When any player enters the control room, let's say we wandered into the control room right over here, and usually this will happen later in the game, you're going to set it up in the tile stack over here accordingly. There's a whole way to set it up, but the control room will eventually enter play. A person will enter it, has to be a person, not the android, at which point everything's going to start shutting down. At this point, you will no longer be adding people to the board unless you're playing the semi-cooperative mode, which I mean, I would rather play this cooperatively or solo, but either way. As far as once you enter the control room, you'll stop adding these people to the board, and now your job is to rescue everyone and get back to the entrance with all your people. So to that end, everything's going to start falling apart. You can continue to explore, but now as you explore things, the world is falling apart, and now we have to get to these people. So if we have to get to these people, the challenge becomes, and again, the board's usually large at this point, but I'm trying to show you how this actually plays. So now the challenge becomes, to be able to go ahead and figure out how you want to move around the board. So we have to get here, but how are we going to get here? This person went last. We can go with this person. This person can go over here, but won't really help us. We can go over, nope, we can't get over there. We're going to go ahead with the android. We're going to head down over here, putting down a tile, and this one has that room over there, which is going to be another rotating room, which won't really help us, unfortunately. We're going to go ahead with this person over here, which is going to go down over here, exploring there. And we have this tile, boom, we now have access to this, as well as one of those gears over there, but now this room falls apart. In fact, this room as well should have fallen apart. Let's ignore this one, so let's show you what happens when this happens. When this falls apart, what you're going to do is this room is going to collapse because you left that room. Once that collapses, everything's going to shift directionally in the arrow of that room. So things are starting to collapse around us as the game falls apart, and we're trying to get our way back to the entrance. It's now going to be Pink's turn over here. Pink's going to go over here. Pink's having a hard time trying to figure out what they want to do. Pink's going to use the android, I guess, at this point, to go ahead and rotate this android. So this android is going to rotate over here like so, and that means this one's going to rotate the other direction by doing that. Again, didn't actually do much. We're going to have yellow go ahead and wander over here. And because yellow left the board, again, this falls apart, and this follows because of the directional arrow of that tile. When you abandon a tile, it falls apart. Now we're going to go ahead back to the other turn. It's now Pink's turn. Pink can go ahead, Pink's trying to get over here, but it's not really hard, so we're going to go ahead and use the android. The android is going to walk off this zone, and we have a dead zone. A little dead zone that doesn't really help us that much, but there might be ways we can mess with that. And now yellow is going to try to start moving the way backwards here. They can't go this way. They can't move anything, can't manipulate. They'll head down this way because there's not a lot you can do. And so when they leave that room, when yellow leaves this room over here, this person automatically is saved, and you can put it off to the side or store on an entrance tile, whatever you want as far as that goes. But again, this tile was left, which means this falls apart, and all the tiles to that directional arrow slide inwards. So you're going to have the room slowly falling apart as we go through this. Pink's now going to wander into here. Now that's possible, which is going to have this fall apart. Nothing can slide that way. Yellow's going to go ahead and move directly up into this room, because why not? Which has this tile falling apart, but these tiles sliding downwards because of the directional arrow. At which point Pink is going to go ahead and just use this ability to slide this up because of the gear ability. At which point then yellow is going to do the same thing over here, and then Pink's going to do the same thing over here, at which point orange is going to do the same thing over here, yellow I mean, and then Pink is going to wander down over here. Now because this tile, that's from the wrong stack, because this tile over here has somebody left on it, it won't actually collapse, but the door does shut behind them, unfortunately, and you're still trying to get back to the entrance. Now a few more things to cover over here, because we do have a few bonus tiles to go into, is we have a few more tiles we want to show you. One is going to be the automatic shutdown tile, which will eventually happen over here, at which point you can't even explore anymore. And then you also have the emergency exit tile, which is going to give you another exit in addition to the first exit. And that's what's going on in Mechanical Beasts. Let's just show you two more things as far as how gears work, because there's two gears I showed you and two gears I did not show you. This gear over here rotates the entire column along that wall, or kind of shifts it. So if we do this, we can kind of push everything down one, and this is going to go off the edge and over to the other side. So you have tiles kind of moving along that wall. And then the last gear we have is this one over here. And this one, when you rotate, it's a bit of a pain, but you rotate the full trifecta of tiles in that quadrant. You treat it as a kind of middle quadrant, and everything rotates around it. And those are the rotational movements you have. And that is Mechanical Beast. The basic idea is you have your engineers, you're wandering around, you're trying to rescue all the people, which you'll have more than 2 people generally when you're playing a full game. You're trying to then go to all those people, gather them, and then make your way back to the entrance. If you make your way with the engineers, you do win. If you make your way there with the android, then you win more, but you don't need the android. To paraphrase the rulebook, you'll just lose millions of dollars of equipment and a dear friend, but you still are considered to have won the game. That's Mechanical Beast. Let's go ahead and dive into the review, starting off with ease of play. Rulebook's like 2 pages, and despite my very lengthy demo, the game's very easy to dive into. The game's very easy to understand, to dive into. It's very quick. There's a few game modes. I've only really played this in this traditional cooperative gameplay. I have not played in competitive or in semi-cooperative, any of that. I've played it purely as a cooperative experience where your goal is to explore, to create the game board, and then try to mess with the puzzles in a way that eventually drives you back home. As far as game time, generally around 20 to 40 minutes. I think the box says 20 to 40 minutes. I think it depends on what you're playing with other people. As a solo game, I find it's like 25, maybe 30 minutes. With other players, it can run a little longer. As far as what I like, don't like, and can see others not liking, first of all, a short, accessible puzzle. It's short and it's easy to dive into. It's very clever as far as what it's doing, but the core thing I like here is really just one thing. This is a puzzle. It's a rewarding puzzle as you go through this board over here, trying to figure out how to manipulate the different gears, how to wander around, how to take into account the way things are collapsing around you, and trying to take all that general information into your head as you just figure out how to save everyone and get back home. That's the only thing I like. But that is what the game is. The game is this one-trick pony, but it does a good job at that one-trick pony. It gives you a lot to consider as far as how to actually manipulate the board to get back to what you need. There's a degree of luck as you grab random tiles and see how it favors you, but there's almost always a way to try to figure out utilizing the board state as you know it. Okay, great, there's some luck as you put things out, but there's a way to kind of retreat back to something that can work and get that additional gear and move this around. You can kind of have enough pieces of just things thrown at you that eventually you can find a pattern that you can work with to solve the puzzle and make your way back home. As far as what I don't like, first of all, the first half of the game, or maybe the first third of the game, it doesn't really feel that strategic. It just feels like setting things up. The game itself, in the first third of the game, you're just kind of laying out tiles, and there's very little reason to manipulate that much in the way of gears. It's possible to have someone telling me all the ways I should or not, but in general, I do win this game. I just have to go through them until puzzle and gymnastics of getting there. But I find the first third is just move, set up, move, set up, move, set up. It's not a problem. You're just creating the game state that then as things start to collapse, that's when I start to feel the reward of here's a puzzle here, and here's how I'm trying to solve it. So a third of this game is kind of setup, which is not necessarily a big deal, but it does take away a little bit from the experience. And then secondly, I'd say that there's a lot of tile manipulating in a way that is just annoying. Not problematic from a gameplay stance, just annoying from trying to rotate tiles and shift tiles and move things around and trying to move this over here without having this slide off the side. There's a lot of things like that will happen in the game as far as just general manipulation of tiles in a way that can be a little bit obnoxious considering how much is going on in the game. You're doing your puzzle of trying to figure things out, and sometimes that puzzle is like, okay, great, now I need to pick up 4 tiles, and I almost wish I had little plungers that I can use to pick things up, although I still think it would be an actual tedious pain to go through it. So those are really the things. They're kind of accessibility issues as opposed to actual gameplay issues. As far as what I can see others not liking, first of all, I primarily enjoy this as a solo experience, which isn't a problem for me because I like having it as a solo experience, but if you're looking for something that plays better at higher player counts, maybe it's me, I don't know. I think this plays better solo. I think at higher player counts, this really is very prone to alpha gaming, where somebody's trying to figure out the perfect puzzle, and you really have one person running the system, and the other people are kind of along for the ride. Or alternatively, I have to keep my mouth shut as I see the puzzle. It doesn't give you a lot of disparate elements that you're controlling yourself. There's no hand of cards, there's no powers and abilities, there's not these other things you're each doing. You're kind of working together. Sure, you might have your character, and you could play with more than one character solo, by the way, but you might have your character, but it still just tends to feel... I think it's better as a solo experience, not a problem for me. I like it as a solo game, but if you're looking at for higher player counts, I think it suffers a little bit at once you even at 2 players. I think it suffers a little bit. And then secondly, not a lot of variability to the experience. In fact, no variability to the experience. The variability is the way the tiles come out. There is some difficulty modification things you can do, you can mess with, but the actual gameplay experience is the same same game every time. Usually it's something I complain about in a solo puzzle, which is the way I'm treating this. Not really a big deal. This is the kind of game that's going to cover myself here and there, and the variability will be the fact that I only pull it out once every 6 months in general anyway. As far as final thoughts on Mechanical Beast, for the short version of final thoughts here, is this a 3.5 out of 5 for me. I like it, I do, and the gameplay alone, probably a 4 to 5. I really like the puzzle. The things that hold it back for me are going to be primarily the fact that for the game that it's giving you, there's a lot of things that are just kind of in the way of the experience. Tile manipulation, setup, getting the game set up the first third over there, that lack of variability. There's a lot of small little dings that take away from where I am with Mechanical Beast. But overall, the actual gameplay I like, and the solo puzzle that it gives me, the 20-25 minutes of just trying to think through how to manipulate it, is a rewarding experience. They give you enough tools that it always feels challenging, and yet for the most part, I generally win when I play the game, which means it has that aspect I like in games where I feel challenged, but I get that reward aspect of winning. I want it to feel like I have to think my way through, but once I'm done, yes, I got the reward, the winning of the game, and I enjoy that puzzle. I like it. It's a solid game. It doesn't blow my mind in any amazing way. It's a one-trick pony, very much so, but it's a good one-trick pony as far as what it's doing. If you like this, and if you're looking for other game recommendations, first of all, Food Chain Island. Food Chain Island from Button Shy Games gives you another manipulation puzzle as you try to figure out the order of things trying to collapse in and of itself in a very different way. Very, very similar in terms of the way those games operate, despite being very different in theory, but they feel very similar as far as the games go. And if you're looking for another tile manipulation game with another degree of solo puzzly tied behind it, Cassion from the Oniverse. I can't remember the name of the company, but the Cassion is a great game that's going to give you a different degree of tile manipulation, very different in terms of what it's doing, but another solid game I can recommend. In any case, and until next time, I hope you found this video helpful. I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co., and I hope you have a good one.